Welcome to Silent Hill. Silent Hill, a quiet little lakeside resort town. We're happy to have you. Take some time out of your busy schedule and enjoy a nice, restful vacation here. Row after row of quaint old houses. A gorgeous mountain landscape and a lake which shows different sides of its beauty with the passing of the day. From sunrise to late afternoons and sunset. Silent Hill will move you and fill you with a feeling of deep peace. I hope your time here will be pleasant and your memories will last forever. That cheap little brochure was the reason Mary and James visited Silent Hill all those years ago. Already that trip felt like nothing more than a legend from ancient times, with Mary as the mythical goddess. In those days, his entire life revolved around her, and every day seemed more vivid and radiant than the last. Back in the days when it felt wonderful just to be alive. It all began at the house party held by a mutual friend. It was an ordinary enough setting for a first encounter, but at the moment when their eyes first met, it was like it set off a second big bang that created an entirely new universe as the setting for their love story. Every day their affection evolved from a blazing passion to a peaceful and stable relationship. Nevertheless, even the most beautiful love stories are pervaded by tragedy. And this story was no different. Fate imposed a harsh ordeal on both of them when Mary fell ill. The pain and suffering they endured during the time that still remained with James, slowly eating away at his heart. And as many great civilizations vanish, their love story came to an end. Ever since then, James had been left alone to wander the ruined world with only the memories of that ancient story, desperately searching for the smallest remaining trace of their lost happiness. This is the place. He spotted the gate through the mist. There were two entrances to Rosewater Park, and traveling from the alley behind the apartments had led him to the east entrance. Mary, please be here. James silently prayed without even really knowing why. The odds of his impossible wish coming true were worse than winning the lottery. But still he wished with all his heart for a miracle. He walked through the gloomy park, his footsteps echoing hollowly on the stone walkway. Just like the rest of the town, this place seems to be deserted. But suddenly, a shadowy figure drifted into view. For a split second, James' heart soared and he rushed towards the figure, only for it to be revealed as the statue atop a pedestal. Patrick Chester, son of Edward, he fought and died for the people, for liberty and for all of our tomorrows. His memory lives on, read a plaque underneath the statue depicting a grim-faced soldier. The flutter of expectation gave way to a misery as his small hope was dashed. James smiled bitterly, even as a few tears escaped and traveled down his cheeks. Good thing no one could see me for all this fog. For even one of those monsters to see him in this pitiful state. At the very least, he could be consoled by the fact that he hadn't come across any more of them yet. He descended a flight of stone steps until he reached a boardwalk. Beyond the boardwalk's gently curved handrails was an eternal expanse of white nothingness. The pervasive fog had even managed to ruin the view of the lake. James searched through his mind until he came upon the precious memory of watching the sparkling water with Mary. Those memories were just as vivid as the day they happened, which wasn't a surprise, considering how obsessed he was with Mary back then. Casting a sidelong glance across the boardwalk, he could almost catch a flickering glimpse of what she looked like on that day. He remembered thinking that even the brilliant sunset reflecting off the lake's surface was impossible to compare to Mary's graceful figure and radiant smiling face. That cherished image of her was displayed in front of him as if it was from a projector. It was like some trace of her had been carved into this place. James stared, entranced, until the figure of Mary blurred and shifted through the mist. There was something in the way she leaned on the handrail. Could it be that this wasn't just an illusion? James couldn't believe his eyes. "Are you Mary?" He stared with blank amazement as he took one uncertain step closer. The woman turned around, her face was unmistakable. The radiant beauty that never left his mind even after all of these years. "Mary?" the woman asked. "Mary? Who's that? Your girlfriend?" Aside from her hair color, she was the spitting image of Mary. Even her voice was the same. James was staring at her so intently he could have devoured her with his eyes. "No. My wife, she passed away. But you look just like her." The more he looked, the more he saw the differences between this woman and Mary. The woman was wearing a flashy and somewhat revealing clothes, whereas Mary had always preferred plain clothing. Not only that, but if she really was Mary, shouldn't she be just as happy to see him as he was to see her? Also, he couldn't picture Mary glaring as him like this woman was. It wasn't in her modest nature. Jeez, that's got to be the lamest pickup line I've ever heard. Unless she really meant it or something. "Unfortunately for you, my name's Maria. I'm not your wife, and I'm certainly no ghost either. See?" She grabbed James' hands in hers. It was an enticing gesture, like she was familiar with men. "Aren't I a bit too warm to be a dead person?" James felt a mild shock at the gentle touch of her fingers. Though he could understand in his head that this was a different person, he shivered as it brought back memories of holding Mary's hand. Without meeting her eyes, he pulled his hands away. "Sorry, I must have the wrong person." He turned his back to her and began to walk away to leave Maria. His wife's look-alike behind felt like abandoning the real Mary. "Hey, where are you going?" Maria's voice chased him down. To look for my wife," James said, looking back at her again. She caught up and walked beside him. "Didn't you say she was dead?" "Yeah, for 3 years now. But she sent me a letter. She said that she was waiting for me in Silent Hill, at our special place." "Are you kidding me? You really got a letter from your dead wife? You sure someone isn't messing with you?" "It's okay to laugh. I know it sounds silly, but I'd really like to believe that it's true. That Mary's really is alive." So then this park must be your special place, right?" "Yeah, I think that's what she meant. Sorry to say this, but there's no one here but me. I should know. I've been out here for a while. Do you have any other ideas?" The way she was meddling in his business with her noisy chattering was starting to get on his nerves. This woman was nothing like Mary, and yet the image of Mary looking over the lake was still fresh in his mind. "Well, there's the hotel too. I forgot its name though. Lake something? Oh, the Lakeview Hotel. Yeah, that's the one. Well then, I guess we better get going." James stopped in his tracks. "You're in this town as a tourist too?" "No, but I know this area well enough." "Why?" "Oh, you don't know? There are these weird creatures all over the place, and everyone's gone missing. If you're so familiar with this place, then tell me what's going on in this town. What the heck are those monsters?" Maria shrugged. "I don't really know myself. Before I knew it, everyone was gone and I was all alone out there. Anyhow, you'll want to go this way." She grabbed James' arms and began walking. "We can go to the hotel now and You'll have me guide you. Wait, why should I let you come with me? Well, you said I looked like your wife, didn't you? If that's the case, would you really leave me here all alone? Maria asked, displaying a charming smile. Between the low visibility because of the fog and the overall danger of the situation, James wasn't thrilled at the idea of having to look after a stranger. Especially her. If he was by himself, he'd be able to run away if he needed to. Having her around might just slow him down. Soon after the two left the park, a mannequin-like monster emerged from the fog. It was easily dispatched, but James was forced to use the last of his precious ammo. What would he do if he was surrounded by the monsters like he was before? Ouch! Maria complained with a scowling expression. Hey, be more careful next time. I don't want to get myself hurt because of you. James checked the condition of her injury. Blood oozed from a scrape on her upper arm. Sorry. The monster only gave her a scratch, but James still felt the need to apologize. He didn't particularly dislike Maria, but he didn't want to listen to her exaggerated complaints. Still, her appearance puzzled him to the point that he didn't know how to react to anything she said, especially when she spoke with the same voice as Mary. In any case, if he wanted to keep Maria safe, he'd had to get hold of more bullets and fast. It's not like he just run into an arms dealership in a residential area like this. He looked around, trying to catch a sight of anything through the fog, and he noticed a gas station. Upon closer inspection, he found that the building was locked up tight, but there was something else that caught his eye. It appeared that someone abandoned their car here in the middle of refueling. But stranger still was what James found at the front of the vehicle. A long iron pipe had been stabbed through the front hood. There was no doubt that this had happened because of the uproar the monsters had caused. In any case, if he could kill a monster with a wooden board, then a steel pipe would be useful enough as a weapon. James climbed on top of the abandoned car and pulled at the steel rod with all of his strength. His efforts were rewarded when the pipe was pulled free. Hey, be careful swinging that thing around. You better not hit me by mistake, Maria said as she tapped her foot impatiently. For someone who said they wanted to help, she sure was a sharp-tongued woman. The pair proceeded west down Nathan Avenue. You see that? Over there is the Historical Society. Maria pointed to the right of the road. It was a small building, befitting this small town. James couldn't imagine there being anything interesting to see in there. A little ways ahead, there's a bridge we need to cross. Then we'll turn onto Sanford Street, and if we keep following that road, we'll reach the hotel eventually. How long do you think that will take? The last time he'd visited this town, he had a car, so the distance to the hotel had seemed like nothing at all. Well, we still have a long way to go. It's all the way on the other side of the lake, after all. That far, huh? James let out an exasperated sigh. It looked like he'd be stuck with Maria until they reached the hotel. However, it soon became clear that protecting Maria was the least of his problems. In the place where the bridge should have begun, there was a huge gaping hole in the road. The bridge had collapsed. There's no way. Could those monsters have caused this too? Maybe the bridge had been destroyed in a panic as people were trying to leave the town. Seeing as the other end of this highway was blocked for construction, this would have been their only means of escape. What do we do now? Maria asked, sounding more amused by the situation than anything. There's no other way. Discouraged, James hung his head, completely unable to find a way around this new obstacle. His gaze fell on what appeared to be a body lying on the corner of the road. Was this another dead monster? James crept closer to get a better look and was startled to find yet another human corpse. It was clutching something in its pale hands. Choking back his disgust and crouching next to the body, James pried the object from its cold fingers, taking a great care not to touch it any more than he had to. It was a map of Silent Hill. Map in hand, James scurried away from the rotten corpse and back to where Maria was waiting. Unfolding the paper, he found that one point was marked with an X in what appeared to be blood. That's the bowling alley, Maria remarked, peeking at the map over James' shoulder. It's right across the street from that gas station we stopped at. Yeah, but why is it marked? What kind of place is it? Oh, it's just an ordinary bowling alley. It's not a very popular place. You'll hardly ever see anyone there. Well, let's head there then. They would have to turn around and walk back to town anyway if they wanted to find another way to reach the Lakeview Hotel. So it couldn't hurt to stop at the bowling alley along the way. With that person on the side of the road that had risked his life to hold on to this map, maybe it was the key to solving the mystery of the unusual phenomena in this town. Maybe, James secretly thought, finding this map is somehow Mary's way of guiding me. After making their way back into town, the two located Pete's Bowlorama, the bowling alley underneath the bloody X. As James opened the door to step inside, Maria abruptly said, I'll just wait out here. You'll be alright by yourself, won't you, James? You changed your mind? I hate bowling anyways. Really? Or are you scared? You don't have to worry. If I come across any monsters in there, I'll be sure to take care of them. I guess if it really is that dangerous inside, I really would prefer to be alone. Fine by me, Maria said as she casually leaned against the wall. James stepped into the pitch black room, letting the door fall shut behind him. It seemed like the only set of lights in the entire building was actually working. An amber glow came from further inside, and he could make out the voices of two people chattering in the dim light. You are robber? Or killer? No, nothing like that. I'm not that awful of a person. What? But that's so boring. Did you get chased by the police? I don't know what the cops are doing. I just ran away because I was scared. But if someone was mad at you, why don't you just say that you're sorry? That always makes things better. No, that's no good. No one would ever forgive someone like me. Not only did James recognize both voices, but he easily recognized the face of the younger speaker. It was the girl from earlier. James quickly ran over to where they were sitting. But the girl, probably frightened by the sudden sound of footsteps, ran away and hid in some dark corner of the room. Turning on his flashlight, he scanned up and down the lanes, trying in vain to find their hiding spot. Eddie! James called out to the other person. Sitting at the table, illuminated by a small camping lantern, was Eddie's portly figure. He was munching on a piece of pizza taken from the box that sat on the table. And you are? He asked through a mouthful of food, regarding James questioningly. I'm James, remember? We met back at the apartments. Oh yeah, you're that guy from before. That girl that just ran away. Who is she? You from the hospital? Trying to catch Laura? Not exactly. I just need to ask. Laura, was it? I need to ask Laura something. The light pitter-pattering of footsteps echoed through the space. Bye-bye, came Laura's mocking voice. James hurriedly searched with the flashlight's beam but was still unable to find the girl. She must have ran outside. Come on, Eddie! We have to find her. Maybe later. You're not going to go after her? Aren't you her guardian? There's all kind of monsters running around out there and you'd rather sit here eating pizza than go make sure she's safe? Her guardian? No, that's not it at all. Me and Laura just met by accident on our way to Silent Hill. It's not like I brought her here or anything. Even then, it's still your responsibility to look after her. Laura will be fine by herself. If I went with her, she'd probably just complain about how I'm getting in her way anyhow. Just forget it. Infuriated by Eddie's careless attitude and tired of his pointless arguments, James turned and headed back to the entrance. Eddie didn't seem to find a problem with this, as he simply returned to his leisurely meal. Go ahead and eat your stupid pizza to your heart's content. I hope you get eaten by a monster next, you fat idiot. Maria was still waiting outside. Maria, did a little girl run through here? Yeah, she went that way. I tried to chase her, but she got away. Maria pointed to an alley that extended south from Nathan Avenue and continued past the bowling alley. However, as they followed the alley, the two of them came to a dead end. Again, the path was blocked by a brick wall and Laura was nowhere in sight. She probably got through here and ran to Carroll Street. There was a small, cramped gap between two of the buildings, hardly big enough for a child to squeeze through, let alone an adult. Is there another way around? Yep. Right this way. Maria motioned to the door directly behind her. It was the back door to one of the buildings and looked pretty promising. However, it's no good. We're locked out. Is that so? Maria dug in her skirt pocket and produced a key that fit perfectly into the door's keyhole. What a yerk. Even if Laura would be fine, the idea of Eddie sitting in that empty bowling alley, carelessly and greedily stuffing his face with pizza, still irritated James. He just couldn't understand how someone could act like that. How could he just ignore the fact that a helpless child was wandering the monster-infested streets of a deserted town, all alone? Even stranger was how Laura seemed ignorant of the danger. Like she couldn't see the monsters. How can she act like there's nothing to be afraid of? I don't think I could do that even if I tried. Truthfully, he sort of envied Laura in this regard. Envy like an ugly, monstrous dog with a disease-ridden and painful bite. James had courage, only it was more like a recklessness. I really can't stand that kind of weakness. I don't want to go outside, I just want to stay shut up indoors. Being alone really is the best thing. I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me. Here we are. Heaven's Night. I used to work here a while back, Maria said. From the back door they had climbed a set of stairs until they arrived at the inside of a bar. Over by the stage sat a row of seats, most likely for the shows presented there. I was a dancer, you know. No, that made perfect sense. James thought and nodded in realization. It certainly explained Maria's hairstyle and showy fashion sense. She probably had a big dream of performing in Hollywood or Broadway, in some fancy club, but somehow she ended up here in a tiny little bar on the outskirts of town. She really had no hope of appearing as a classy lady hanging around in a place like this. You're being awfully quiet. Are you imagining me up on that stage, dancing right now? Maria laughed, teasingly at James' silence. He denied it with a half-hearted and ambiguous reply. The truth was that Maria had guessed absolutely right. But he wasn't thinking about her for the reasons she seemed to be implying. It was more painful than that. The thought of this woman who looked exactly like Mary dancing in such indecent clothing and exposed to men's greedy eyes. It was like seeing Mary herself endure public humiliation. Almost like the inquisitive eyes of a stranger watching her in her sickbed. In an attempt to escape these gloomy thoughts, James walked over to the front counter. Stepping behind the counter, he searched around on the bottom shelves. As he had hoped, he came across a gun kept for security. An automatic weapon that held 15 rounds. But with his good fortune came a bit of bad luck. There was no extra ammo to be found. James stuck his new weapon in his belt loop and discarded the gun he had used before. For a moment, he pondered what to do with the pipe he had went through so much trouble to acquire. He came to the conclusion that it would be best to keep it and rely on it as much as possible for fighting, saving the gun for a dire situation. Well, it doesn't look like that girl is hiding in here. I bet she's left at the other side of the building by now, Maria said as she held the front door open, inviting James to follow. The two descended another staircase and re-emerged onto the foggy streets. To the north, the road was blocked by more construction. Where else did the girl have to run off to? Over there, Maria shouted, pointing to the south where a small figure swiftly slipped into the mist. Alerted by Maria's voice, the shadow darted to the side and hurriedly entered the nearest building. Wasting no time, James and Maria chased after the fleeing child until they reached the door she had retreated into. Marked on a plate above the entrance were the words Brookhaven Hospital. The door had been left ajar, almost like an invitation to step inside.